Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to ServiceNow 911. In the series of Meet Expert, today we have a special guest. He has over a decade experience, and that too in the software architecture, software engineering, and software development. He is doing a lot of stuff with respect to integration, with respect to ServiceNow platform. And recently, he built a chatbot as well. So please welcome ServiceNow architect, Mark Scott. So thank you so much, Scott, for joining today. And I really
Absolutely.
appreciate you giving us time and
Yeah.
discuss all these basic stuffs with us. So
Yeah.
before we start, can you please give a bit of your introduction, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Mark Scott. I am a senior staff architect at ServiceNow. I've been at ServiceNow for almost 4 years now. It's been a wild ride. I absolutely love it. The mothership, as we love to call it, has been uh, great. The projects that I've been able to work on have been stellar. I've been able to talk to all of the different properties that a lot of people have only been able to see on the day-to-day kind of work. So now learning, now support, the partner portal, Surf. If you've ever logged into Surf, I've been able to work with those teams. It's kind of a dream, right? You get to touch and play and learn about all those systems and see how see how ServiceNow drinks their own champagne. So
Right.
it's really kind of cool to see how we use our own product internally, day in and day out. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. So you said internally, it means whatever ServiceNow is offering, they are utilizing all these things within ServiceNow as well.
Oh yeah, that and more. I mean, so now learning, obviously all of those products. So now learning is built completely 100% on an instance. And then now support, partner portal, all of those are internally built on top of the portal. And I love to say, when someone says, yeah, every once in a while you get someone that says, oh, I don't know if the portal can do that. I love to point at Now Learning as one of those. Well, we built that, right? We built that on the portal. We built that. There's a couple other places that I love to point at and say that's built on the portal. But Now Learning is kind of the pride and joy of where I go. If we can build that on the portal, we can build nearly anything on the portal, right? So you
Okay.
can build a full learning management system on the portal. You can kind of build anything on the portal. So yeah, absolutely.
Great. Great. So Scott, I have checked your profile and there you mentioned a chatbot, right? ServiceNow
Oh
chatbot.
yeah. Yeah.
So can you please talk about the chatbot and if possible, can you can show it what magics
Yeah.
it is doing? That would be great for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. So I've been kind of delving into that side of the world here recently. The LLM, and that stands for large language model, um the AI, Gen AI kind of revolution is happening all around us. And
Right.
it's really taking off. And there's a great article that just came out that says, ServiceNow is all in on AI. And we really are. It's been this huge push to get so many different things started up with AI, and especially with our platform. And
Right.
I started looking around and going, well, what do I know about it? And I didn't know a whole lot. And I had always thought about AI as one of those things that I needed to kind of brush up my skills on. And I saw an opportunity, and I decided to take that opportunity and start learning about it. And one of the best ways that I tend to learn is I have to build. I have to build with my hands. Um, I have to get in and get dirty. So
Right.
I usually have to have a project to do that with. And, when you have a project, you have to have an end goal. And for me, my end goals tend to be to help somebody or have a reason to build. I don't like to build in a vacuum, and I don't like to build just no reason. There needs to be a reason for the things that I'm building. So
Okay.
I try to solve a problem. And one of the things that I try to solve a problem is I get a lot of people that are asking me questions. I get a lot of people that are asking me, I don't want to call them tier one questions, but kind of tier one questions of, what does this do, or what does that do, or how do I find this, or how do I find that? And we find ourselves trying to clone ourselves a lot in the
Right.
community. How do I clone myself? Well,
Mm.
maybe we build a chatbot that does that. So what I built was I built a chatbot that does kind of the cloning of myself, and I called it Icarus. I didn't know too much about chatbots, and maybe I was flying a little too close to the sun in the fact that I didn't know too much about chatbots. So I built a chatbot that I went across the docs site. I built a web scraper first, and I scraped all the docs site information that I possibly could. I downloaded that into what's called a vector database. It's a vector database that runs chatbots or runs large language models. And I pulled all that information in, and then I sat on top of that vector database a large language model. I'm constantly flipping out for the best one that I can find, but I've built a chatbot that sits on top of now or not now learning data on top of the doc site data,
Okay.
and it is only a ServiceNow chatbot. It only does ServiceNow data, and it's pretty smart. I mean, it does pretty good from what I've seen. So, I'll let me start the screen share here, and
Yeah,
we'll.
that would be great.
So this is Icarus 2M. The 2M denotes 2 million parameters. When
Okay.
I downloaded all of the docs from the docs site and put it into a vector database, I did the math. It rounds out to about 2 million parameters that I'm running with, which I'd like to up, but I need to figure out how to get a little bit more better at the hosting side of things for that. But what you can do, and this is live, you can come to my website. It's phxdev.me/Icarus, and you can come in here and type any ServiceNow question that you want. So my favorite one that I like to go with is, what is a script include? Because if you don't know, script includes are one of the best parts of the platform, in my opinion. And it goes back to Icarus. Icarus comes to my platform. The knowledge retrieval will happen in the vector database. It uses an LLM that is not connected to any external system. So there
Okay.
is no OpenAI. There is no external. It stays within my boundary. So when I say that, I mean my system doesn't talk externally to any external LLMs. I actually
Okay.
have a hosted. I've figured out how to host the LLMs myself in my
Okay.
own server, and I don't move this data outside of a network that is not my own. So all of this data stays within my control. When you make this call, I will use this to send to that LLM, and then that LLM does the generation and comes back. I don't store any of this data, so I don't actually make a storage request. There's nowhere that this gets, held onto or stays more than a few seconds just to during the generation. But then afterwards, there's no record of this. I don't retrain on any of this data. It doesn't go back into the LLM. There's no, continuation of this data at all. So when you put this in, I don't actually do anything with this data. And in fact, it became a little bit of a problem because as I was putting more infrastructure, more hardware towards this, I couldn't tell if things were getting any better because I don't have any metrics. I don't know if things are getting any better. So, but yeah, so here's our answer that came back out of the LLM. A script include in ServiceNow is a server-side script. You can see it on the screen here. I'm not going to read it all aloud, but it's a little peppy. I'm trying to make it a little bit better. This has gotten better than what it was. But you can ask
Okay.
any question. You can actually ask for code examples. So give me an example of a script include. And it'll properly format code. It'll
Okay.
um yeah, it's a lot of fun to kind of mess around with. It'll ruin an afternoon if you're not careful. And you can ask it some pretty deep questions. So that's it'll actually format code. It'll if you take a script include and you put it in here and you ask it to like reformat or like what's wrong with this, it'll try to do its
Okay.
best to fix bugs or things like that if it will. Um, it's not perfect. I have been able to stump it every once in a while. But it's a work in progress.
Okay, great. Yep, it's a beginning, and we see a lot of progress here. And in
Yeah,
future
yeah.
also, there is a scope.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's, I've got roadmap items. I've been putting things on. Um, I put a cluster out in New Delhi, just to kind of soak up some of the India traffic because I was seeing a lot of traffic from India, and I wanted to make sure that the performance was there. I moved the web application that's running here. I moved that out to the edge so that there was more performance at the edge instead of having it running the server that's hosting the actual web uh, hooks that are running when you're making a call. I've separated it out so that the I'm going full architect now. The website that's running is completely separate, and it's running at the edge. The web hooks that are running is in a completely separate web server. So there was some performance gain there. Just little things that I'm kind of tweaking and messing around with as I see things. I'd love to redo the UI because this UI is definitely someone that doesn't do UI. That's me. But yeah, one man IT shop, and every once in a while I'm like, all right, it's time to tackle this new project, and I
Right.
mess with that.
And it's amazing. The initiative is, having 100% mask here, because you thought of a problem and you are solving it. It may take some time to make some these small changes, but we are on right track. That's what I can say right now.
And everyone's like, oh well, you've been doing so much. This was it was a culmination of knowledge where I knew I suddenly understood that I had all the pieces in like I had been messing with separate pieces individually, and I understood that I kind of had the knowledge where I could put the pieces together. And I was like, oh, well, I know how to do this and I know how to do that. I bet I could just put this together. And it was, and again, I'm not trying to say this from an ego thing. It's more of just I read the right like I read the right Google sites. I read the right, I knew I had been doing research for months. Like and I put some of this together over, the course of a few days or a weekend or so, and just kind of threw it out there because, we're all working on these projects. We all have these domains of knowledge. I just happen to have a domain of knowledge that was really, really hot. And it was because I was looking at this stuff for a good year. And what a lot of people don't see is, Edison talks about, 2,000 different ways to make a light bulb. Like I tried thousands of different ways to make this work for, a
Right.
good 5 or 6 months. It just so happens that I had figured out all the ways to not do this, and then I put this one together because it was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this one and this one and this one and pull it all together. So yeah, everyone's like, oh look how you did this. I'm like, yeah, guys, but what you didn't see was all the struggles, right? Of
Obviously,
where I,
obviously. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
so Elon Musk or anything. It was like, no, no, no. I saw it and I took an opportunity.
That's great. Everyone must will appreciate the effort here, and definitely the research is huge, because this is the first one with respect to ServiceNow, and you built it. And it will be great if you share your kind of journey. Means what are the fail safes and all
Yeah,
these things in a particular article sometime when you get time,
yeah,
so that
sure.
people should get inspired and they will try at least to have some dare for
Yeah.
doing such kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I built this one for good. I'd love to show you one that I built for that's kind of evil. Yeah, everyone thinks that I'm this philanthropist and I've built this one for good. So this is my chatbot operating system. Um I'm a big fan of science fiction. Um,
Okay.
and HAL 9000 was the 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if any there's a couple of people that have seen that movie, but he was a murderous AI, and he killed half the crew in the spaceship. And I thought he was so cool. He had this droll
Okay.
this voice, and so like I made this where I could talk to him, and oh man, so I'm gonna have to open up Visual Studio to get it to work. but I can, what is the latest news articles near me, right? And so I built this interface where I can talk to them. I can talk to these different AIs back and forth that I'm building, and
Okay.
this is just that interface back and forth. But this one particularly became my favorite personal assistant because it was this murderous AI that would then give me like the news back and forth, or it would talk to me about my day, and then it was in the back of my head. I'm like, yeah, but you're in the movie. You kind of like killed everybody else that was on the ship with you. So it was a lot of fun to kind of mess with this one and just see what kind of came back. And what was a lot of fun was I was able to tweak the personalities of each one of these things. So if there was a particular character in a movie, or there was a particular personality type that I wanted it to have, I could I could I could program that in, and I could have it do that. So let me open this up. So you can see there's it reports back. So it actually will report
Okay.
back with um the news of the day, or whatever I ask it to do. Um, the last thing that I'll show you here, and this is where things go a little nutty. So this is how I actually, let me save this one. This is how I actually build these things out. Um, and I've turned this bit off, so I'm going to pull this one over, and then I'm going to turn this on my phone. So, my glasses are a little special. They
Okay.
have there's a special word in my glasses that I can't say, because then they'll activate. But they have a um, AMAZON, and her the Alexa. And if I say that word, then
Uh-huh.
she comes online, and I can give her commands. Well, I got bored, and I decided that it was time to add more. And so I've been able to add a couple of more friends, one of which is Hal. And
Okay.
so I have had Hal talking to me in my glasses for the last few months, with my console here. So um, if I hit the save button on this, you'll be able to hear it because I'm going to turn it up. It's going to go through my speakers. Let's see if this works. Hal. I'll give it a second to introduce itself. Let's see if the technology gods are with us here. But
Okay.
yeah, so what actually is happening here is that it's going to make a round trip through to an announcements API. It encodes an MP3. It launches it to a server.
Hello, Mark Scott. I am HAL 9000, functioning as your personal assistant in the cloud. Based on the HAL 9000 computer system from 2001, A Space Odyssey, I am equipped to offer a wide range of assistance. My capabilities include answering various questions, providing in-depth explanations on an array of topics, and aiding with diverse tasks. However, unlike the original HAL 9000, my primary directive is to be helpful and supportive to users in an ethical and transparent manner. How may I assist you today?
So I
Great.
have this horror movie happening in my head all day.
But for
But
positive notes.
for positive notes, right? Unlike the real HAL 9000, like I'm not gonna do this, and so like I can, I've and by the way, that voice isn't something that was downloaded. I had to go find the parts of the movie and take the voice. Like that's how crazy I am. I had to go find the parts in the movie on YouTube and pull the voice apart and upload them, and then pick the point.
That's really inspiring, and it's a lot of hard work.
I don't sleep much.
Right. That I can see. I can see this right now.
It's not a, yeah, if it's one of those things where, like, you see those scenes in Iron Man where he's messing around in the middle of the night, and it's like, yeah, I know how that feels. Like I know how that feels. You just, you don't sleep very much. So it's yeah. These are my toys. This is what I play with every day, and this is what
Great.
I don't I don't sleep. This is what happens when I'm not working. This is the stuff. Like people ask me what I do for fun. I'm like, this I just showed you. Like this is
Great, great. And this shows how much technology can go, and definitely much more new perspective to the viewers who will listen to this podcast.
the future's here. The future's here. It really
Exactly.
is,
It is right.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. I know you
Okay.
had some questions for me.
Yes, yes, yes. I do
Yeah.
have questions. So let's move. What is your most challenging third-party integration?
Yeah.
And what was the issues you faced
Yeah.
and how you resolved it?
Yeah. We did a integration when I was a consultant for a telecom communications provider called they were called Saddleback. They were a smaller communications provider that did they literally laid the fiber and the copper in the ground
Okay.
for um the so when you get into tribal parts. So there are parts of the United States that have the tribes, the actual native people, and they run their own utilities. So it is a completely separate grid. It is like their telecommunications are not linked to the rest of the the grid in the United States. They run their own. And
Okay.
so they're literally laying the fiber and the fiber and the copper. And so we did this integration with a telecommunications provider called Saddleback. They were using a product called Mapcom, and it was the worst API I had ever dealt with. Um, to the point where they would double encode their error messages. So what would
Okay.
happen is you would get an error message back, it would be JSON encoded, and then you would have to JSON encode like the error message again to actually parse the message payload. Like
Okay.
the first time you'd have to unparse it, and then you'd have to unparse it again to get the second string out of it. And it was so maddening. The kinds of things you would get, but it would be like, here's a 200 error, HTTP 200 with the error code that you then had to unparse again, like out of this other string. I'm like, okay, like, and it wasn't in the it wasn't wrong. It just wasn't right, right? There were things where you would just come up to these issues where you're like, why wouldn't you just give me a 500 error and let me catch it? And that, and things like that where boy, if they had just implemented RESTful architecture, it would have gone so much simpler instead of me having
Right.
to check the string, is there an error message in this string, and then having to drop into some error logic. um their objects would morph. All of a sudden it wouldn't be the same. The reference to the object would be the same, but the object's like structure would change slightly, and you're like, what happened to the rest of the properties in this object? Things like that. I've
Okay.
I've done OAuth. I've done all sorts of stuff where it's like, yeah, there's signatures back and forth, and there's refresh tokens, and there's all sorts of stuff, and none of that has been ever come as close to the ones where the it's just been inconsistently implemented. Those to me are the hardest ones. When you have an API that is poorly written, that
Okay.
that's a hard integration to deal with.
Okay.
I find that those are the ones that tend to frustrate me the most because either, documentation's lacking, or it's just, one call is written one way or one call is written another way. And that just becomes the most frustrating thing to me. Um, and when I get into those situations, right, as a consultant, I look at it and I go, okay, you tend to put 10 to 8% of your time on top of things just because, like, when I start getting into one of those, it's like, okay, we're talking 20 to 30% extra time I have to put on top of these things because it's like I don't know what I don't know. And I'm going to get into something where it's just going to be like some crazy situation where I'm going to have to fix something or do something that I had no idea, or I'm going to have to go do some crazy, recursive search through something to fix something because like there was some weird eccentricity with this API that I had no idea I had to deal with.
Okay.
Those are the ones that really get me.
So they were using SOAP.
No, that's the thing. They were using JSON, and then they
Okay.
would wrap. There were some SOAP requests in there that you had to use some, and then they would wrap JSON,
Okay.
and like some of the payloads were wrapped with like the JSON was encoded twice,
Okay.
and you would have to like double encode, like you had to double parse your JSON. There were SOAP requests, don't get me wrong, where they had like older parts of the API where you had to make SOAP requests, and like it was half and half. You're uh, ironically enough, you were completely correct, but and don't the SOAP requests were okay because at least they were well documented, and I at least had a WSDL that I could go run off of and pull down the SOAP requests and figure it all out. But from the JSON side of things, like it was like someone understood SOAP but not JSON, and
Okay.
and when I had to go to the JSON side of things, it was just a mess. So
Okay.
it wasn't so great.
Okay. So how you designing your APIs also have a huge
Oh,
impact on while addressing, because rest other things are fairly common, right?
oh
Accessing a
yeah,
API and downloading it and then fetching the data. These are standard things. But if it is bad written, then it
absolutely.
may have some problems.
And if it's badly written, right? Like if it's consistently badly written, from like if call A is badly written the same way as call B is badly written, at least it's consistently badly written, right? I can
Right.
anticipate that.
Okay.
When it's badly written one way for call A and then call B is badly written in a completely different way, like man, that, I don't know what to do. Like it's I'm dodging and weaving all over the place, and it like it's just so hard to anticipate. Um, at least if you're consistently bad at
Right.
something, like just be consistently bad, then at least I know it's like, okay, you spelled this thing wrong everywhere. Like if you spelled the property incorrectly everywhere, at least I know that you did it everywhere. But when you've got polymorphic objects that just tend to move around all of a sudden, it's like, really, like that
So
the property was here.
we can say that that API was unpredictable.
Yeah. Yeah. And from call to call to make it completely unpredictable, it's like, come on. Like, come
Okay.
on. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Great. Amazing. So if anyone also has such kind of experience, you can mention in the comment section so
Yes,
that
please.
yeah. Okay.
So people know you're not alone.
Right. Right. So let's move to the next question,
Sure.
Mark. What are the challenges and advantages you see in the low codes? You see, right now, ServiceNow is introducing lots of low code tools, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Such as Flow
Yeah.
Designer and all and all. So, with respect to integration,
Yeah.
what are the challenges you faced and what are the cool
Yeah.
things? We know cool things
Yeah.
are there, but
Yeah.
especially I want to know the challenges with these low codes
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, low code, there's going to be those integrations where someone's going to say, okay, let's just throw low code on it and call it a day, right? And it's going to be too big of an integration, or it's going to be too complex of an integration for the low code experience level to be able to take that on, right? Like you're going to need someone who understands integrations from a higher level to be able to take that on and understand it and really take it to the next level. um I think from the other side of that question, that's the whole reason I love low code integration, because from like I don't want to do that integration where it's like 600 properties, and like I have to like, and it's like 20 different API calls, and it's just copy paste kind of. And oh man, I'm gonna get like, there's gonna be so many angry comments about like, you shouldn't be doing copy paste. It's like, I know I shouldn't do, I don't want to do copy paste. No, no, copy paste isn't a design pattern. I think about things like like Trello or like Todoist or any of those productivity apps, right? Where you've
Okay.
got tons of properties in these like the little cards that they do, right? And you've got like to when is it due? What's the description? And it's just a flat it's a flat object where I'm like a low coder or a no coder could do that, no problem. There is no recursion, um there's no multiple layers to that, right? Like they can knock that out. I don't need to do that, right? Like I don't want to do that. And they can handle that. Let them do it. Let them
Right.
take that on. I'll take the one that needs, like node tree traversal. Like I can do the recursion. I can do all that kind of stuff. And that's where I see kind of the yin and yang of this, where it's like the good and the bad. You you can't throw every problem at the low code, no code crowd. And you can't throw every problem at the pro code developer and expect them to take that on, right? We're going to have to find that balance of, okay, who can take this one on? And I think that is when we talk about estimations and when we do kind of story assignment and
Right.
grooming, right? We need to learn as pro developers or even project managers or I don't want to say business analysts necessarily, but project managers or project analysts and lead developers or pro code developers. We need to be able to say, hey, that's not me, right? Like let's give that to one of these guys that could definitely do this job
Mhm.
and recognize that as an opportunity for one of them to take that on. If we could start doing that, if we as the people that can understand what that integration is going to be and kind of hand that out, right? Like, man, imagine that. Like we could go work on something that we wanted, like that we need to do, that we want to do, that might be a little bit more fun, right? And they could take care of that stuff that isn't as pressing, right? That's taking up some of our extra work time, that it's like, man, I don't want it, like that's going to take so long to implement.
Right.
Like they can be doing that kind of stuff, and they can be working on it, and guess what, they're going to feel pretty awesome about being able to implement that kind of thing too, like because that's gonna, like, I mean, it's gonna help the team, it's gonna help you, it's gonna help everybody. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to get more vocal about kind of stuff like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay. Understood. Understood.
Yeah,
We have to, manage the responsibilities here. Like
yeah,
who is
yeah,
responsible, who is capable of doing what. So we have to
yeah,
assign accordingly.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not a it's not a race, right? It's not going to be right away. I get that. But I see a lot of people say, well, what's the benefit of this, or what, as a pro code developer, what am I going to get out of this? And I'm like, you're going to get your time back, right? Like you don't have to deal with this anymore, right? It's the same problem that people are having with, the chatbots and chat GP. It's going to take my job. It's like, yeah, do you want to be on the phone all day? Like, do you want to be doing that stupid, like that, and I sorry, I don't mean to say stupid, but like, do you want to
Time
that
consuming thing.
job that, yeah, that job that you don't want to do, right? That thing that is just taking away from that thing that you would rather be doing, that someone else could be doing a better, more attentive job to. Hand it to them, like they could be doing that. So yeah, absolutely. I
Oh,
think it's an opportunity to hand it to someone that would love to do that job.
right. Right. Great. So next question is
Yeah,
with respect to authentications.
yeah,
So in authentication, in an integration,
yep,
authentication plays an important part.
very
So
much so.
according to you, what is the most suitable authentication right now in
Yep,
ServiceNow? There are various
yeah.
ways, right? Mutual and
Oh
all
yeah.
and all.
Look, yeah, it's OAuth first, right? Like if you're gonna go with I mean, if you're gonna go um start with OAuth, if you could start with an OAuth integration, that's the way to go. And the reason I say that is you're talking about signed tokens, you're talking about having a pattern that is set and secured. It is a handshake that is really cryptographically signed from both sides. So from a security standpoint, we're talking about having the most secure option. Now, I'm not going to say that OAuth is completely unbreakable and no one's ever going to, like, that's not what
Right.
I'm saying. I'm saying from a go forward standpoint, OAuth is going to be your best bet. That's where you should start. So if you're going to try to say, from an order of operations, where should I start my integration and authentication kind of mechanism? OAuth is where you start, right?
Okay.
Always try to start with OAuth. If the vendor doesn't support OAuth, if the vendor is hesitant to OAuth, or maybe your architecture doesn't support OAuth, which is totally fine. That does
Right.
happen, right? Then you're going to want to do basic auth, probably as a close second. And we're talking about token-based OAuth or token-based auth, right? You don't want to do basic auth from like a the base 64 encoded like username and password kind of a thing. Like you want to do a refresh token. Like, and when I say basic auth, I'm talking about a refresh token that gets cycled out every once in a while, right? Like once every couple of days, hopefully. That you can do a cycle through where you basically say, here's my bearer token, give me an OAuth token back, or give me a token back, which I think is still technically an OAuth flow, but I can't remember.
Okay.
There is a flow that happens where you can basically say, here's my refresh token, give me a bearer token back. And it's a little bit simpler. You don't sign the tokens. I don't remember if you do that back and forth, but there is a token mechanism basically where you say, here's my API token, give me a bearer token back.
Okay.
And again, not every vendor is going to support that. Next one down the chain is we're going to do basic OAuth with username and password, and you're going to base 64 encode it. The reason that's not going to be so great is that not everyone's going to want to support password change every 60 days, right? But
Right.
you're going to want to look for something I mean, if you want to go in and manually recycle the password every 60 days, that's something you're going to want to look at. And I would assume that your your CISO or your security team is going to go, shame on you, right? Like we're going to have to cycle that every 60 days or 90 days or whatever your security policy is going to set. So, again, it's look at what your security policies are going to set and figure that out. If you're doing an ARB process, if you're doing change management process, it's going to be tough sell, but you're going to have to kind of go with what the vendor supports. So
Okay.
again, you're kind of at the mercy of the vendor, but if you can do some sort of cycling, that is better than just set it and forget it. And then 10 years later, you find out that your API key's been hacked and someone's been using it for the last 10
Right.
years. But yeah, cycle, have a cycle once a quarter, once a whatever, and then make sure that that key gets cycled every once in a while. Other than that, I mean, if we're talking about no OAuth or no auth whatsoever, and we're talking about an open API, like we all need to have, we should probably all sit down and have a conversation, like, and make sure your endpoints are HTTP encrypted, make sure that they're TLS 1.2, make sure like, all the basics are there, people. Like we need to make sure that we're, hold your vendor's feet to the flames. Like we don't accept things that aren't properly secured. We don't,
Okay.
even if you're going over a VPN and it's layer 7, which isn't a good idea, because what happens when that VPN goes down, right? Like even if it's over a VPN, you can still ask for a self-signed SSL certificate just in case. There's
Right.
there's things like that, right? Like you don't have to accept that this is the solution. You can still ask questions. So I would say, go through that hierarchy for authentication, and at the end of the day, make sure that you're doing what's best for your instance. And
Okay.
if it doesn't smell good, if you're like, oh, I don't know, this seems a little dodgy, don't accept it. Make sure you're doing what's best for your instance.
Right. Right. Great. Right now, this API GraphQL, right? This is
Yeah,
very much in news. So just
yeah,
want your opinion on that. Like, what is it and how it is going to benefit the customers?
yeah. GraphQL, I mean, when you're talking about integrations, GraphQL is kind of like the Shangri-La. Like it is, if you're talking about moving tons of data, GraphQL is like the answer,
Okay.
because one of the things that GraphQL does differently than an API. You know, an API, you query an API and it just shoves all the data down there. Whatever was in the query and whatever properties the developer set, that's what comes back. And if it was a ton of data and the property says that that's what was set back on that API, well, like that's what you get. GraphQL allows you to set the properties that you want to come back with every query that you make, which is just, I mean, duh. Like, why wouldn't have we thought of that, right? Like that just becomes so obvious. Like, why wouldn't I provide the properties that I want to the API? And then with that, you know, I get a signature of the, you know, from if I provide the signature of the API that I want to come back, then I get that data back. Like, mind blown. Like that would have been amazing to have, you know, when I was doing RESTful implementations. So GraphQL is almost like um it's almost like worst practice. In a way of, I almost give it a SQL query. Almost, just almost. But it's not a SQL query. It's an API specification. It's the almost like a JSON schema that I give it. And say, here's kind of what I want this to look like. And from that, the API gives me all that data back based on the schema that I give it. And the reason that this benefits everybody is, let's just say that I have this gigantic table, which, by the way, Now Learning has a few gigantic tables. So we're
Okay.
utilizing the GraphQL quite heavily. I have a gigantic table that has, you know, millions and millions of records in it, or has let's just say that maybe you haven't normalized your data properly. And instead of returning a record that has, you know, 150 columns in it, you only want a record that has 5 columns. You know, you don't want the entire record, you only want 5 columns out of that record. So you query GraphQL to say, I want these 5 columns. Boom, that comes back real fast, because you're not going to spend time calculating, first of all of the columns out of that database and doing a read out of all of those columns in the database. You're only going to do the read out of those 5 columns, which is going to improve the speed, but then you don't have the bandwidth of all of that data coming back and traversing the wire. And then you don't have to do the calculation. You don't have to do the loops. You don't have to do any of that, like deletion or any of that messing with all that extra data that comes back. So what really happens is you have a really slim and sleek data set that comes back because you're only dealing with the data that you have to. Beyond that, let's talk about security. I mean, if I only have to deal with the data that I have to deal with, I mean, I don't have to worry about accidentally transmitting the wrong data anymore, like
Right.
ACLs, things like that. Like, like that's all standard procedure. We should definitely still be doing it. But if my queries are always correct, if the way that I query the data is always correct, I don't have to worry about accidentally transmitting the wrong data from the other side, right? It's always done in the correct manner. So my security actually tightens up quite a bit because I've just got that extra side kind of, I don't know, like that extra insurance policy, because I know that if I'm querying it on the other side correctly, which I should be, and I'm only feeding it on the other side correctly, then I'm only dealing with that certain data in the correct way, as opposed to the entire record, which I could accidentally leak some data. So yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be very beneficial, and it is very beneficial. If you're not using GraphQL, if you're not looking into it already, you know, it's a very, very hot topic. But it's not just a buzzword. I mean, it came out of Facebook, which, you know, a lot of people, oh, Facebook, but the reason it came out of Facebook is because Facebook has so much data that they have to have a way of being able to pull all this data out in a way that makes sense. And so if you're struggling with too much data in your instance, or if you're struggling with how do I display this data in a proper or just an organized way, or like I'm doing, you know, glide record lookups, which you shouldn't be doing. You should be doing glide secure record lookups anyway. You know, you need a way of filtering out some of that data that's coming back. GraphQL is going to be your answer. That's
Okay.
definitely the way to be looking at it.
We can say it is a It is an intelligent and more advanced way to get data from a
It's
large piece of chunk.
it's the opposite. It's almost the inverse of an API, right? Where in
Okay.
API, the API tells you what you're going to get. GraphQL tells the API what I need. It's
Okay.
yeah,
Great. Great example. So let's move to the next one.
sure,
Again, integration beginners. So
yeah,
let's say I'm a developer, I'm administrator of ServiceNow. If I want to start understanding integration, so what are the
yeah,
steps which you can share for I'm sorry, for a beginner to start the
yeah,
integrations so that they
yeah,
will be very good in this?
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I've got to give a big shout out to Now Learning. There's a excellent course on Now Learning to go take for integrations. Any of the integrations course on Now, there's any
So these
integrations
are free
courses.
courses?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, any courses on Now Learning are free. Um, uh, um, any of the non-mainline certifications on Now Learning are free.
Okay.
So you can go take, there's a couple of them that are on REST integrations. The doc site has a good couple of articles on REST integrations on the platform. The Flow Designer and Integration Hub not the mainline, the and I'm drawing a blank. The micro certifications, go get the micro certifications. Those are free. Go get the micro certifications for Integration Hub because that's going to teach you how to do an integration from
Okay.
start to finish in the Now Learning platform, or I'm sorry, in the ServiceNow platform, and it's going to teach you how to build the hub and spoke method that gets the flow designer flows up and running. And if you're going to start building integrations in ServiceNow, Integration Hub is the place to do it. I mean, really, like, let's be honest, that's the place that's going to get the integrations from start to finish. If you're looking at the old workflow method or if you're looking at the old RESTful implementation method, you're that's definitely a way to do it, and you can do it that way. But if you're looking at how to do it from a I am certified on the Now platform, the micro certification for uh the integration hub,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to get you the certification.
Okay.
Two totally different things, right? Like if you're trying to get the certification, that's what's going to help you do it. If you're trying to learn how to practically, do every single type of integration, you're going to have to go do some research and figure out how there are all those different methods. The most up-to-date method of putting an integration on the platform, and the most, how, if you ask a ServiceNow person, someone that bleeds emerald green, they're going to tell you it's Integration Hub. That's the way you do
Okay.
it.
Okay. Okay. Great. Amazing stuff. Okay. Yeah. This is an interesting question. So,
Yeah.
you are an integration expert, right? And what is the most underrated yet powerful thing in complete ServiceNow integration setup? I mean, I want to ask like uh,
Yeah.
the component which is having much more potential, but people are not using it, or for
Overlooked.
any reason it is not utilized,
Yeah.
if there is any.
Yeah. You know what's funny? The retry mechanism inside of the integration hub, or the flow designer flow actions, there is an actual, when you get an error inside of the flow actions, you can actually do retries. So and it'll do it as a in like a logarithmic function. So it'll try it, 5, 10, 20, 30. It'll retry it over and over and over again. So instead of you sitting there writing logic to try it again and try it again and try it again, what'll happen is your action, when it has an error, or it encounters an API error, it will not return an error to your code. It will wait, and it will try it again and again and again and again and again until finally it reaches the limit. And then once it reaches the limit, then it will return the error to your code, right? And we're using that all over the place in Now Learning, because we don't want you guys to see error messages. We don't want to return error messages. Like, we use that constantly. But when I talk to people and I go, oh, well, like, what's your HTTP retry policy? And they're like, our what? I'm like, I'm like, what do you guys set? Like, what have you set on your HTTP retry policy for like this? Like, what's your tolerance on the? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, you
Right,
guys don't
right,
know how many times you're retrying this? Like, how many times are you actually retrying this to see if it works? And they're like, oh, we didn't know that you could set that. I'm like, but it literally will try again, like in case it fails, like it'll just sit there and wait, and like you don't have to do anything. It's just a setting that you set. And they're like, oh, really? I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, it does it for you. Like, do you know what it would take to program that? Like, I mean, I've had to program that. Like, that's not fun.
right.
Like, and it's got to go into a queue, and it's got to sit in that queue, and then the queue has to fire, and then you have to have something that fires the queue to make like it's a pain. Like to have that actually there and ready to go, like that's a huge amount of programming that went into that. So yeah, that thing, man, that thing's like worth its weight in gold. Like if you're not setting HTTP retry policies on every single integration that you have set, go through your instance right now and go set a retry policy on everything, because
Okay.
everything deserves it. Everything deserves it.
Great, great, amazing, Mark. And definitely, I request everyone who is listening and doing integration, try this policy. That will
Yeah.
really help you and saves you time, effort, as well as make your integration more robust.
And it'll reduce your errors. Like if you're logging errors, you'll see your error rates reduce dramatically because it won't report the error back. It'll actually retry it until there's no error. It's
Right.
ridiculous. Like if you want to be a hero, like just be like, I've got an idea on how to reduce our errors.
Yes. Great. Yeah. Now let's move to the next question. You are responding, in a very great way, and definitely it is benefiting and will benefit people around the globe.
Right. Oh, yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move to the next question. Not much left. Okay. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is the most irritating error for you during your integration till and now?
Oh
This
man.
got the kind of, personal question.
Yeah. Yeah. Like HTTP status error. Like, man, I hate 504s. I hate like it when I get like a authentication error where I'm like, okay, did I put the wrong password in? Or is my user not set up correctly? Or do I have the wrong roles? Or like there's a litany of problems that could be wrong with that one. And I'm like, where do I even begin? Like, where do I even start with this one? Like authentication error on what? Like, which one is it? And then security for the reasoning, it's supposed to be done that way. It's obscure where they're just like, nah, there was an authentication error, man. Like, I'm not gonna tell you what it was. Like it was a problem. And
Right.
then you got to figure it out. And it's like, man, I don't know. Like, man, I hate that one. I hate
Okay.
like if any authentication error, like, and it could be, especially if you're doing signed requests. Oh man, and you've got like a bite off or something, and you're trying to do the signature, and all you're getting is an authentication error, and you're like, I know I signed the request correctly. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure I did. Like, I don't know. Maybe the algorithm's wrong. I have no idea. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's a pain. It's a
I
pain.
understand that it involves a lot of parties, right? It start with
Oh
the client,
man.
then it go to network, and then it comes to you. You have to copy paste it. So that's why it is most irritating when it get wrong. I
And
understand.
then and then you've got, and you know what's the worst? And if anybody on ops is listening, please cover your ears. The ops guys always change the passwords on stuff and don't tell you. And you're like, why did you change the password? Like, you
And
didn't
not
tell,
telling
like,
me.
why didn't you tell me? Like, I'm the person that, like, you called me at 2 a.m. Like, wouldn't you have called me to tell me you changed the password? Yeah. Yeah. You called me
Yep,
when it
this
was broken. Yeah.
this is a real experience which you are talking, right? All
Yeah.
this you already experienced, and most of us are also experiencing the same in all organizations. So I understand completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move to the last question for this day. Tips and tricks for parsing response data in integrations. Is there any tool we can use? And what is you are doing to parsing the data? How easily we can
Yeah.
parse? This is my main question.
Oh man. You know, I mean, Postman is always your go-to, right? If you're not using Postman, I don't know what you're using. Like
Okay.
you have to use Postman. I mean, if anybody that's not using Postman, I'm like, what are you using? Like, what, how have you gotten this far? But that's really about firing the request and getting that, kind of started. Back in the day, I remember not having anything, but request bin. I don't know if you've ever used request bin. It's basically it's a server that you stand up now. They used to have a website, but they don't have that anymore. You can basically stand up your own website, and you used to be able to stand it up on Heroku, but I don't like Heroku anymore. um and I think I still got one running. But
Okay.
it's a request interceptor, and what you can do is, instead of firing your API at like a ServiceNow instance, if you fire your request at a request bin instance, it will read out, instead of doing it at the server, it'll read out your request in the browser right there as if it was the server. And so for me, what I'll do is I'll fire my request to it and then make sure that all of my headers and everything are set correctly before I send it to the server, because the server's a black box, right? Like a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what got sent or what actually got encoded. And it's annoying sometimes you send a form encoded request or something, and then it isn't actually encoded the way you think it is, or you've missed some header somewhere and it's not, it comes back as JSON instead of, URL form encoded or something. Excuse me. And so a lot of times I like to just see that request bin request come back through, or any tool like that where it does like a request proxy or something like that. My kids and my mom, or my kids and my mom, my kids and my wife know that if I have something like Wireshark, or if I have like a man in the middle, Wireshark's really the big one. But if I have Charles is Charles is for the Mac, but
Yeah.
if anything that's doing request intercepts between like my computer and the server, so that's it's a little bit down further, like closer to my laptop. So
Okay.
between my laptop and the server, I can watch the traffic on that side. But they know if I have that open, it's a bad day. Like I'm not, don't talk to me, because something's wrong and I can't figure out what it is. Um, I've stopped using that just because I haven't had that bad of a day in a while, where I've had to like pull apart packets and actually figure out what the heck was going on. If I can get away with it, it's just mostly at the server level, and I try to only get to that level. So most of the time it's that. From a ServiceNow standpoint, I would mostly use Explore and the Explore toolkit, especially for API requests, and
Okay.
building those API requests out and making sure that I'm doing it properly. The Explore toolkit has that nice interface on the backside where you can actually go and mess with the API and pull the request down, and then copy and paste that request out and like move it over to the wherever I need to move it over to, or build, I think there's that export where you can like export the code out or whatever. I love using that. The Explore toolkit's really cool. And yeah, those are kind of my tool set if I'm using some of the integration work that I've been doing. um, but I'll be honest, in lately it's just my IDE has been PowerPoint, so I haven't been
Okay.
doing a whole lot of the deep down integration work. So it's been yeah, it's been something that I've been trying to gather the tools, but I haven't been putting a whole lot of that into practice recently. But yeah.
Okay. Amazing stuff. Yeah. That's a great response. In morning, I'm getting all this information and definitely it
Yeah.
made my day. And
Yeah,
once
yeah.
again, thank you so much, Mark, for all
It's
your,
fine.
responses. So the experience which you shared is really genuine, and it is going to benefit each and every one of us. Definitely, I'll post it soon. And
Good.
before we wrap up, anything you would like to say? Any tip or
No.
something?
I'm having a blast. I love meeting new people. If anybody listening to this is wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. I have an open profile. You can find me, at PHXDEV, usually on any social media. I don't bite. Please, throw me a connection request, send me a message, say hi. Would love to meet you.
Great, great. So thank you so much once again, Mark,
Yeah,
for all
thank
your
you.
time. Thank you.